I'm going to ask Natasha to introduce herself, if that's okay, Natasha.
Good morning, Lucy. Thank you for having me. And I'm delighted to be here today to talk about hypnotherapy. My background as a psychotherapist and a counsellor and a hypnotherapist, I've been in private practice now for 12 years. And before that, back in the early days, studied NLP. So that kind of started me on my journey as a therapist, and I absolutely love what I do. And I'm based in Hertfordshire and in central London, and of course remotely on Zoom at the moment. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
And I'm so pleased to be talking to you today, and it's wonderful that we can do this. And as you said, you're based on Zoom as well, so you're still seeing clients and helping them out remotely.
Yes, absolutely. More so than ever, I think it's been a real lifeline for people to be able to access support, access therapy when it is very difficult for many people to get into a face-to-face session. And it's also, I think, opened up therapy to many people who wouldn't necessarily have found us as well. So we can, talk to people in their own homes and be available for people, not just in our local area, but nationally as well.
That's wonderful. And today we're going to be talking about a subject that I hope will help a lot of people. And one of the reasons that we wanted to talk today is because we have seen a massive increase in people searching around fear of needles and phobia of needles and injections. And this is completely understandable with everything that's happening at the moment. COVID has been in our lives for almost a year. We're now talking about vaccines, which, for some people that feels very hopeful, but if you have a phobia, that could be quite conflicting. So let's start at the beginning, and perhaps you can explain a little to us about fears and phobias.
Yeah, absolutely. So fears and phobias are often a coping mechanism. They're often something that is projected from an experience or from someone else's experience in some ways. So it can be, maybe we've grown up with a parent who has a phobia of a particular thing. And so sometimes that subconscious language that we've picked up can become very, very powerful. And our imaginations are our most powerful tool. So we can imagine all sorts of scenarios, whether it be a phobia of spiders or flying or needles, as we're talking about today. And so it's really about what we put into the headspace for us, and how we create that fear and we embody that fear. And it can be quite a frightening place for many individuals.
You really can, but there is help available for fear and phobias. And one of the things that I wanted to also chat to you about is what kind of people come to you for help with fear and phobias? Because I just want to bust some myths around who comes for hypnotherapy.
Everybody. It's really interesting because I work with a younger cohort of young people and children, teenagers. We often see quite a lot of teenagers coming, certainly within a vaccination program. So the HPV vaccination program, often we see a spike in young people coming. And then for things like dental phobia, if you think about the amount of sometimes the work that individuals may need, dentistry wise, there's a lot of needles involved in that. There's a lot of, being sort of having invasive treatment, and there's a lot of fear around that too. So I've seen a lot of dental phobic work over the years, and that has been men and women. And there's no particular one size fits all for this either. It can be from all sorts of different backgrounds and experiences, and that people maybe have had where they've had a bad experience where they have suddenly gone, right, I'm not going to do that again. Why would I take myself back there? I'm too scared, I'm too frightened. And then pregnancy is another thing, because obviously that brings about blood tests and certain treatments. And often we'll see that being an element that comes through into therapy. I've had clients in the past who've had real fears of blood tests and needles, and actually not wanting to fall pregnant for that very reason of thinking about what they may need to do. So it's lovely to see the other end of that, when a client has come through and overcome their phobia and managed it, and fallen pregnant and had a baby. So that's amazing. So yeah, a complete spectrum.
And that's wonderful to get that kind of sense of breadth of
Yeah.
people who this might affect. And I was reading something earlier that suggested that maybe 1 in 10 people have a phobia of needles, and perhaps more have a fear of needles, with the kind of fear and phobia being on a spectrum. So is there anything you wanted to say specifically about a phobia of needles?
So the phobia, and we call the phobia of needles, trypanophobia. They've always got very long extrapolated names and they sound very dramatic. Um, I think it's interesting because what we don't really experience is injections very often in our lives. And I think that by the time we're consciously aware of them, often when we get to maybe being a teenager, we're much more aware of pain, of discomfort, of blood. Often goes hand in hand with maybe a fear of blood or a phobia of blood.
Mm.
And what's important to understand is we can have a fear of something and we can push through that fear and have a successful outcome. A phobia is far more deep, kind of rooted in a complete sense. It becomes very physiological. So we get lots of manifestations in the client where it's just physically impossible for them to put themselves in that environment. And so that's kind of what we're working with when we're looking at phobias themselves. Fears are often, again, the language, the imagery, the imagination, the things that we have created in our minds, which are incredibly powerful.
Mm.
And remember, the mind is there to keep us safe. We don't like being in pain or uncomfortable. So that's really when we're kind of looking at the two spectrums of where that might be.
And that's one of the really interesting things about the mind. And, you know, the mind is so fascinating, the coping mechanisms it puts in place. And we were talking before we started on this webinar today about the fact that having an injection is something that could feel something that our body or our mind needs to protect ourselves from, if not thought through about why we're having that, what that means to us.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about the mind, could you give us an idea of what someone could expect if they're coming to hypnotherapy for a phobia of needles, bearing in mind that everybody will be different,
Yeah.
and each hypnotherapist will have a different way of practicing?
Absolutely. And I think crucially, it's about understanding that the therapist is there to facilitate the change and to help you to find your own ways, to teach you some techniques, and to actually build the client up so that they feel really confident and resilient in order to realize what's going on in their mind. And so we create an environment of trust and of confidence. It's very much about that therapeutic relationship. And as you say, there are lots of ways that hypnotherapists work. So lots of different models out there as well. So there's lots of rapid transformation work, which works quite quickly. There's Ericksonian based techniques, and people may have heard of things like NLP. And it really does depend on what fits for you, really. And I think getting to know a client and really drilling down on where their phobias or their worries or their concerns are coming from. So putting someone at ease is really what we do initially. And remember that hypnotherapy is called hypnotherapy for that very reason. The therapy part's quite important because we're listening. We're constantly listening to the language being used by the client. We're observing the body language. And it's harder on Zoom, obviously, but we're really picking up on the nuances as well, and really listening to the messages that sometimes we tell ourselves as a client. And certainly when it comes to fears and phobias, that messaging can be quite negative, it can be quite dramatic, it can be very, very fearful. And so it's about pulling apart some of those mistaken beliefs in some ways so that the client can see some clarity, and we move them towards a space where they feel that they are confident enough then to overcome what their difficulty may be. And whether that is getting through a blood test or getting through 4 hours of dental treatment, which I have worked with clients, it's about learning those techniques so that you can just apply them yourselves, which is the beauty of it, really. It's very powerful.
It's a powerful process. It's also quite a peaceful process, not protest. It's also quite a peaceful process because there is something about taking that time and that space to understand what's going on for you, to talk about it and have it reflected back at you.
Yeah, I think in the craziness and the busyness of the world we live in, I think that's becoming more paramount than ever, that slowing down and actually connecting with that mind body connection is really about how we bring about change, and to overcome something, it starts with ourselves. The answer's not out here. The answer's not in a book or in what a therapist might tell you. It's really about actually aligning yourself with tools and messaging, and actually giving yourself the space for that change to happen. And you're right, hypnosis has a lovely, and it's all about the language and the method of how we speak, and the modality, and how we actually project that when we're running a session or when we're holding a session. And so I think that's what surprises people, because it's not something that's done to you. Hypnosis is all self-hypnosis, so we can't make you do something that you don't want to do, really. So and that's always, I think, one of the first things that people ask. It's very different from what we would say stage hypnosis, or
Yes.
this is a clinical space, and that's and we're working towards an objective. Yeah.
And please forget anything you've seen on a TV show or a comedy show about what hypnotherapy is, because it really, I've had hypnotherapy myself, and it really is so far from that. It's as I said, it's a calm, it's a peaceful, it's reflective, it's helping you to have your own mechanisms around something that is negatively impacting your life in this case. And I just wanted to bring it back to why we've seen such a steep increase in people looking for support around fear and phobia of needles. I mean, it's in the news all the time at the moment with the vaccines specifically. So would that be something that's heightening people's fear and phobias?
Absolutely. Language and communication is everything when it comes to fear, when it comes to, and also I think the language in the last year or 10 months there's been a lot of fear in people, all the messaging around COVID. And it's made people very anxious. It's made people anxious in their own homes too. And so even stepping outside and maybe going for that vaccine could be tough for someone. And I also think, because the vaccine is such a positive, and that message also, I think, needs to maybe get out there a bit more as well, that it is a real positive. And so it's about seeing the positive outcomes of why I as an individual would go and have it and feel confident about having it as well, and how I could overcome my fear or my trepidation about that too. But yeah, language is powerful. So it's really important to, when you're in that space with a therapist, is to really look at your own messaging. Why am I doing it? What is this about for me? Because not everyone's going to be the same. Everyone will have their own reasons, and that's really important to understand too.
That's interesting about the language, and perhaps the language that you use with other people when you're talking about going to have your injection, have your vaccine. I don't know what opportunities are to talk at vaccine centres about the way that you're feeling, but perhaps that's something you could talk about with your hypnotherapist, is how you will approach that, or what your internal dialogue might be at that point, if you don't have those opportunities to explain to someone else, as you might with something like hypnobirthing, where you can talk about the use of language. And there's more time, so perhaps it is about really learning those internal language touch points for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Framing it so that I'm keeping myself safe. We often create zones with a client where, at the end of the day, what can we control? Pretty limited, really. We can only control ourselves, the thoughts and the feelings around our behaviors. So it's very small. And actually then it's how we then put that out into what we're doing, into what we want to achieve. And so if I can keep myself emotionally safe, can keep myself calm, know that my body is in check, and that my nervous system is not overreacting, because that's the key to this, is that we go into fight and flight mode, we go into stress, the body starts to react, we start to look for the threat around us, and that threat could be a tiny needle. And I could be a grown man in my 60s thinking, well, why am I scared of that? It's because my imagination and my mind has completely catastrophized what's going on. So absolutely, that inner dialogue, that keeping myself safe, that anchoring, so that you're in that zone when you walk into a vaccination center, that you're calm, you're confident, and that you're in control.
That's wonderful. And just to kind of reaffirm, there is no shame in having a phobia or a fear. There is no shame in reaching out for help about this. The fact that so many people are just shows you how common this is. And this is the whole reason that we're having this conversation today, because we're seeing thousands of people searching for this. So please know you're not alone in this fear or phobia, and there is help available as well. And I asked for some questions before we started talking today. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of these that came in.
Okay.
And one of them is, can hypnotherapy cure a phobia?
It's interesting, the word cure, isn't it? Because actually we kind of remove that from our language, because there is no such thing as a cure really for anything. So we can overcome and we can manage. And that I think is actually, I think it's kind of more powerful in a way, because at the end of the day, we are humans. We're not robotics. We have feelings. And so overcoming certain things and certain scenarios and certain phobias and fears, and managing it, because every experience is going to be different. There's no blueprint for one blood test and one vaccination, and every experience we have is going to be unique. And so,
of course,
managing that as we go through, it's a bit like the fear of flying. Every flight you get on is going to be different.
Yeah. And I like the word overcome, because it's an active word. It's something you're participating in.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
from my own phobias, that point where you get through the other side of something which is holding you back, the feeling of elation is it's quite something, actually.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key point in this, is that then that your brain then registers what that feels like, and then it becomes that physical connection to it. And we do that a lot. We anchor that good feeling and we say, right, we'll revisit that, remember what that felt like. And we will all have had at some point in our life a feeling like that, and we can then transfer that onto different things with different phobias and play with that. So this isn't just exclusive to one particular thing. So I think that's the beauty of hypnotherapy. It's very playful, it's very creative, and it's about the client being curious about the possibilities and about what they can do.
Yeah, it's very empowering, that taking back the control, because also if it's something that you manage, you know that you don't need other people in that space to be able to go through what you're going through.
Absolutely. And that's really crucial. And I think that's crucial when we're looking at children and young people as well, because it's always a case of, especially now, because you can't often have someone with you,
Yes.
in a treatment, or if you're in a space where you can't have someone with you. So it's being your own safe place and knowing that if I breathe into this and I allow my body to relax, and I'm aware of just that little bit of distraction that I might need or use, or and we'll talk about that later, but there's lots of ways that we can again use that. And humans are amazing. We have lots of skills available to us that we often don't tap into very often, that can be really helpful.
Absolutely. So remembering that overcoming rather than curing, I think, with the reframing of that question.
Absolutely.
The next one is, and something we get asked a lot, is hypnotherapy safe?
Absolutely. I mean, there is nothing happening to you physically, so there's nobody contacting you, touching you. So we cannot, as I said before, there's a real sense that it's really about the power of suggestion, and a client is coming to a session with a need or a desire to want to change something. There's no point in turning up if you don't really want to. Or my husband sent me, or my wife sent me, because then actually subconsciously you're not going to be receptive to any of the work that we do in the session. So 70% of the work has already really been done, because the client knows they want some support in changing, and I think that's really powerful. They're in that session, and it's really that's where you can do that great work, where it's that feeling, and as you said, Lucy, that feeling of space, that feeling of letting go. And for some some clients, that sometimes is quite frightening, because it's something they've not done before, and so they will question, you know, well, what should it feel like, and will I go to sleep, and will I wake, you know, will I wake up again, and all of that. You're not really asleep. That's the whole myth around hypnosis. If you're asleep, you're kind of, you know, it's not in the right space, really. We want to be in that middle space between that really lovely relaxed level, and that's what's really nice about it, is that many people have never ever been in that space or touched upon that, and that's lovely to see someone go, wow, that was lovely, that was amazing, that was so relaxing. Can we do it again, is often what they say.
It really is relaxing. And as you were talking, I was just thinking about my first experience of it. And as I'm talking, I can feel that I've got tension in my shoulder, and I've got a bit of tension in my jaw, because I'm wanting to make sure that we get all these questions out. But what happened when I went for hypnotherapy was I just felt everything slightly move down a little bit and relax, and I kind of sunk a little bit deeper into relaxation, and I could hear what was happening around me. I could hear what was going out in the street. I could hear the voice of the lady I was working with at the time, but I was still very aware of my body. I was still very aware of what was happening. There is no zoning out of your body, but it's lovely. It's a lovely feeling.
It is.
So yeah, that's my personal experience, but there's no loss of control, and I think that's the thing that people are worried about.
Absolutely, you are always in complete control, and you know, your subconscious mind is there to protect you, which is, you know, why we're talking about this. You know, it will always step in if there's a threat, and it will, you know, it will allow you to be guided. And if you feel safe, we talk about safety all the time, don't we? If you feel safe, then it's amazing what you can do, and it's an amazing what you can achieve too, if you feel settled and grounded and within that space.
So let's move on to beyond working with a hypnotherapist, as well as working with a hypnotherapist. If you want to think about how you're going to self-soothe yourself when you're going for an injection, or manage your anxiety, because for some people, as we said before, they won't have been around people, and certainly having an injection, you'll have someone in your space that perhaps you don't know, although all of the measures will be in place very strictly for protection. So what are the kind of things that people can do to self-soothe in that moment?
And I think that that's really vital and valid point, because stepping out into the world is after maybe being inside for months as well. That sensory overload is very powerful. It's like getting off a plane, isn't it? Being in a new country or somewhere, and everything is heightened. And so I think for people to be able, before they leave home, is to make sure that they are in the most relaxed state that they can possibly be. And it's allowing yourself to make sure you're connected to your breathing or your breath, to maybe to have listened to some, either a piece of meditation or some music, or to have done some self-hypnosis, to make sure that you've eaten something, that you've drunk something, that you're hydrated. So all those well-being factors that are really important when we go and have either an injection or a blood test, or certainly now the vaccine. And if you're driving yourself there as well, is to just keep that lovely little affirmation. I'm calm, I'm comfortable, I'm safe. And also, I'm a big believer in the future pace of where I want to be. So what does this mean to me? Having this vaccine, what will it give me? What freedoms does it allow me? You know, that we're not just rolling this out for the sake of it. This is about what this means to everybody. And I think it's really about looking at the destination of where this is going to take me, and beyond that as well. But it's being very mindful and checking in with your language as well. I think when we're frightened, we often become quite negative. So it's listening to that language and observing those thoughts. That's a really lovely way of just being mindful of my thoughts, and, you know, allowing them to just, you know, to just drift away. They don't need any attention right now. So yeah, mind, body, and you know, keep yourself connected and keep yourself safe, you know. And if you can have someone around with you, I guess, is, if you're being driven there by a family member or someone that you live with, is to, you know, to make sure that they're calm too.
Yeah, and to talk about it beforehand, what you need in that moment, what you
Yeah,
need to stay
absolutely.
calm. And I
Yeah.
love the affirmation that you just said, which is, I am calm, I am safe. I'm not going to repeat it properly now. What was it? I loved it, but it's gone.
I'm calm, I'm comfortable, and I'm in control. I can't remember either, but I think it was
Yeah.
one of those.
But also whatever resonates with you, it
Totally.
might be, I'm calm, I'm ready,
Yeah,
I can do this, I want
absolutely.
this. It might be that, because as
Absolutely.
you said, this vaccine is the gateway to a different future to the past year we've had.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
whatever works for you.
Whatever works for you, and affirmations are very personal as well, so but we would always make sure that they're in the positive. So that suggestion is, I'm calm, I'm present, I'm in control, and also it's momentary, isn't it? It's a small piece out of our day, or out of our very long year, or however you want to look at it, of and I know for lots of people, they're quite excited about what that may give them. And I think
Mm.
that's something to hold on to too. So if there is a bit of fear in there, it's actually knowing that on the other side of fear is often a real desire to want to change things.
Yeah, and we all want to change things.
We do. Yeah,
we
absolutely.
we want we want we want to be let out. We want to see our loved ones.
Yeah,
We're going
absolutely.
to finish with, and thank you for doing this for us, a 5-minute session for anyone feeling anxious in this moment. So I'm going to switch off my computer. I'm going to switch off my screen, sorry, and leave you with Natasha for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lucy. Well, over the next few minutes, I'm going to just take you through a lovely relaxation. So make yourself comfortable. If you're sitting in a chair, or you're maybe lying down, take time to settle yourself down, recognize any tension that's held within the body. So as you notice your physical body, I want you to bring yourself into awareness. Any distractions from the outside world, or any noise, or anything that needs doing or needs your attention, you can come back to that at a later stage. Right now, all that matters is that you are beginning to just relax. Taking a deep breath into the belly and expanding the diaphragm. Noticing where the breath enters the nose and moves down into the body, into the lungs, and moves down into the tummy. And as you expand the belly and expand the tummy, breathing in lovely, clean, clear oxygen. And then holding the breath very gently at the top. Just noticing what's there. And then very gently, when you're ready, releasing the breath. You can release the breath through the mouth, or if comfortable, down through the nose. Allowing the exhale to be longer than the inhale. And each breath becomes more mindful. Checking in with any tension in the shoulders and the neck. Imagining now above the top of your head, above the crown, a white, gentle, warming light of relaxation. And that light represents a sense of peace, tranquility. Imagining now that that veil of light just washes over you, releasing tension in the jaw, across the forehead and down across the neck. We often forget to release the jaw and the shoulders and the throat, allowing ourselves to become present within the body. So breathing down, deeper down, further down now. Releasing the breath, very gently imagining that that relaxation is moving down the arms, into the elbows, down into the hands, right the way to the ends of your fingers. Imagining that relaxation moving down across your rib cage, warming you, calming you. And as it moves down into the tummy, noticing what's there for you today. Perhaps feelings, worry, excitement or anticipation. Just notice what's going on for your body today. Allowing that to move down the legs and releasing all the muscles, any tension in the ankles or feet now. As you go deeper and further, deeper down. All the tiny muscles in the feet are relaxing, focusing now on the feet, allowing them to soften, allowing yourself to just drift back into the sofa or the chair or the bed, wherever you may be. Allowing all of the sounds of the outside world to drift and just listening to the sounds of my voice. And it's unimportant right now to hear every word I say, because your powerful subconscious mind is always alert. And so allowing that breath to take you deeper, further down. Allowing the eyes to feel heavier, soothing, relaxing and calming. Going deeper. Imagining now, just allowing yourself to go a little bit further. Imagining the numbers from 10 to 1 appearing across a cloudless blue sky. 10, deeply relaxed, deeply comfortable. 9, relaxing further. 8, ever so relaxed, ever so calm. 7, letting go. Letting go of worry, of anxiety, of any stress that has come up for you lately. Right now, it doesn't need your attention. 6, letting go. Allowing all the thoughts and the feelings and the actions of the past and the future to just drift away. Allow them to dissipate. 4, going deeper, relaxing further. 3, ever so relaxed, peaceful and safe and calm. 2, letting go. Let that physical body go. Let that lovely feeling of relaxation to fill the whole of your being. And 1. As you let go of the numbers, as you let go of the everyday, ordinary world, as you allow yourself to be mindful of your being, of allowing your mind and your body to be fully present, I want you to imagine yourself now walking through the most beautiful garden, filled with beautiful flowers and shrubs and trees. And this garden represents hope and spring, new life, change. And it can mean so much more to you. And through that garden, I want you to notice just ahead of you is a path. You allow yourself to wander through the trees, the plants, the flowers, and you notice the sounds of the birds around you. You notice the colors and how vivid they are. Your eyes wide open, curious to the world around you. And you breathe in. You breathe in the wonderful smells and aromas. You breathe in calmness. You breathe out tension. You breathe in peace. You breathe out any worries. You allow yourself to wander without being disturbed or distracted. And you notice the tiniest detail on the leaf of a tree, the colors of a flower. And you notice the sounds of the birds and the wildlife around you, and it feels so wonderful to just be fully connected to nature. And nothing or no one can disturb or bother you. This is your space, your special place that represents peace and calmness and change. You notice off in the distance there is a little bench between two oak trees. You make your way towards the bench. And there's cushions and a mattress, and you sit down and you take the weight off your feet. You say to yourself, I am calm, I am peaceful, I am safe. You allow that feeling to resonate within you, to fill your heart with compassion and kindness. And here in this space that represents change, that represents life all around you, the beauty of the world, allowing that lovely feeling to just resonate within you. Allow any unwanted, any distractions to just dissipate. Imagining those feelings just moving away on the breeze or on the wind. Unhelpful thoughts or unhelpful feelings. Right now, they don't need your attention. And it feels good. It feels wonderful to be connected, to feel safe and to feel free in this beautiful space. And you can return to that place whenever you need a confidence boost, or you just need to be mindful and just reconnect with yourself. Just by breathing into the belly, repeating your affirmation, reminding yourself that you are safe, you are calm. And so enjoy that lovely feeling for just a few moments longer. I am peaceful, I am safe, I am calm. And just allow that feeling to build, not just now, but after the session has finished. Knowing that you can reconnect to that as an anchor, a reminder of how good it feels to just be. And as I begin to count from 1 to 5, you'll come back feeling alert, refreshed, grounded and present, bringing that lovely feeling with you as it grows stronger and stronger. 1, very slowly starting to become aware of the sounds within the room, but also in the outside world. 2, starting to just regulate the breath, but being aware of that mindful breath and keeping it nice and deep and calming, but just making it a little bit more dynamic. 3, starting to bring more movement to the body as you slowly wake the body up, as you bring about movement to the fingers and the hands and the feet. 4, starting to bring awareness to what the room will look like when you open your eyes in a moment. And 5, when you are ready, very slowly opening your eyes. When you are ready, coming back to full awareness, relaxed, alert, and calm. Well done.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And I'm feeling so relaxed. Those shoulders that I talked about being up before are very much down. We really appreciate your time today, Natasha. Before we finish, can you just tell people where they can find you?
You can find me quite easily at natashacrowe.com. My website is there. You can contact me via email. And I also run an organisation called Connected Together, and we run wellbeing workshops and mental health workshops for freelancers and for businesses as well. So that's certainly something that we're doing to support people out in the community at the moment. And I'm glad you felt relaxed, because working from home, we're all like that a little bit. We're not moving as much. So they are things that you can do all of the time. And I totally think 10 minutes a day, I think that we all deserve to give ourselves the opportunity to do that as well. And that's important. Thanks for having me, Lucy. It's been lovely to talk about it. And I hope it's helped many people. And then to go out and have a vaccine and to, have a great life, go out and enjoy themselves.
It really will. It really will. And thank you. And also, people can find out more on Hypnotherapy Directory. Just search Hypnotherapy Directory. You can read about hypnotherapy there. You can read lots of articles from our hypnotherapists. I would just encourage you all to download the Happiful app, where you can find all of those articles for free as well. And you can read our magazine, which you can see behind me, but also is here. You can read the digital edition for absolutely free. So we're here to help you. We'll keep on doing these webinars and podcasts with wonderful professionals like Natasha. And thank you all for listening.